of God. But the fascinating part of the story talks about when he leaves, when he escapes and goes back into his community and the choices that were given to him by the elders in his community as to what he needed to do in order to reinsert himself into the community, the rituals that he had to go through. So the book is fascinating because it deals with aspects of African spirituality that we've not had the opportunity to read about from an indigenous African people. So it's important for us to realize that we do have access to knowledge and information that can help us put the pieces of this puzzle together and understand who we are. Because one of the challenges in talking about religion and deconstructing the Bible is that people instinctively will draw back when you try to take away their Jesus. I mean, that's a natural reaction because everybody needs something to believe in. Everybody needs a foundation upon which to stand. But what I'm sharing with you, brothers and sisters, is that there are foundations out there. You have to take the initiative to begin to do the research, to read, to study, and begin to incorporate this information in your life. What's important about Africans who were enslaved here in America is that we were separated from these teachings. We were not allowed to bring them over here or to practice. We were not allowed. Another important component is that Africans were enslaved in America for 200 years before their European enslavers decided to begin to teach enslaved Africans Christianity on a wholesale basis. What's important about this decision was that it came on the heels of insurrection. And as the Europeans became more and more afraid of insurrection, they decided that they needed to do something in order to keep those black folk docile and quiet. And so decisions were made to introduce them and to bring them into the Christian fold. There's a very important book that you all need to get your hands on and read. I was introduced to it by a minister in Washington, D.C., one of the few African-centered ministers in D.C., Reverend Willie Wilson, who wrote a book entitled Releasing the Power Within Through Spiritual Dynamics. And he references this effort that was made in 1842 to introduce enslaved Africans to Christianity. It was a book written by a preacher by the name of Reverend C.C. Jones, who in 1842 wrote a book entitled Oral Instructions, the Oral Religious Instructions of the Negroes in the United States. He documents in this book the fear of the white enslavers of insurrections and how Christianity can be used to contain them and keep them docile. And he literally met with ministers. He met with groups of enslavers to share this philosophy with them in order to maintain the status quo. And he outlined specific things, specific outcomes that could be expected by introducing your enslaved population to the Christian Bible. He said specifically, you would teach them through oral instructions, since they were not allowed to read, teach them through oral instructions that God ordained slavery for the heathen African. So they stress, and he specifically cited all of the passages in the Bible where slavery was justified by Moses, by God, by all of these personalities, so that the Africans could begin to see that, yeah, I'm supposed to be here because this is where God wants me to be. He said you could also use Christianity to teach the enslaved Africans that God ordained whites in America to be their slave masters. This was the purpose behind this indoctrination. And again, it took place on a wholesale level in this country in 1842. Another point that he made is that since God ordained whites to enslave Africans, then Christianity must not interfere with this divine relationship. All right? So you can begin to understand why the Klan, why other white Christians would burn a cross when they lynched black people, why there was always this relationship between the Bible and religious activities as they were killing other people. That to me seemed to be a violation of the very laws within this book. But the way that it was constructed was that God said it was all right for white folks to do whatever they wanted to do these heathen Africans. Another important point that he used to sell this idea of introducing Christianity to enslaved Africans was that if you give Africans Sunday off, they don't have to work on Sunday, and you spend that day teaching them this information and allow them to congregate as a group, then they will learn to accept poverty, pain, and enslavement on earth because they know that they will get their reward in the next life. Huh? That's not an accident. This is a cold-blooded, calculated design in order to keep a group of people subservient to others. Reverend Jones said that the immediate benefits to the enslaver were introducing Christianity to the enslaved would be that one, slaves would be more obedient to their masters. Because God said, this is how the relationship is supposed to be. The Christian morality would reduce rebelliousness. It would create instead a cheerful motivation, industry, domestic virtue, submission to authority, and peaceful service to the master. All right? This was the intent. And did it work? Is it still working? We have to understand why. As more and more black ministers began examining how Christianity has been used as a tool for white supremacists to control the destiny of African people throughout the world, and as they began to examine the African presence within the Bible, we got to do more than just put a black face on former white faces. We got to do more than say, well, the Bible is a book about black people. We've got to study how this book was constructed in the very first place. Why those images were put there. And the power behind doing that. So let me just take a minute to deconstruct aspects of Christianity, to look at the symbolic aspects, and to extract this African essence so that we can begin to understand what we are seeing. If we examine the African origins of Christianity, we will see that the Holy Bible is literally Helios Biblios, or the Sun Book, the book of the sun. The book of the Son of God, and the book of the Sun, Helios, the sun, the symbol for the Creator. In Kemet, they had multiple names for the sun, the symbol of the Creator. Different names that express the power of the sun or the Creator at different points in time during the day. When the sun was born in the morning in the east, it was called Kepra. When the sun reached its highest point at noon, it was called Ra or Re. And when the sun descended in the evening, it was called Atun, which meant the hidden, which meant concealed, which meant that even though you can't see the Creator, you know that the creative force is still there. You know that it is all pervasive, and you know for a fact that it is going to be reborn tomorrow morning when it rises in the east as Kepra. So they had a profound way of codifying the Creator and the various manifestations of the Creator. Another important aspect of this is that sun rises in the east, it's Kepra, it reaches its highest point at noon, and that is when it is said that the sun or the Creator is on high. When the sun is at noon, that is when it is at its meridian, at its highest point. So the sun at noon, or God on high, is the most spiritually empowering time of day. All right? Most spiritually empowering time of day. And so the time before the Creator comes on high, noon, then that time is referred to, when the sun is at the meridian, that time is referred to as ante-meridian, or before the meridian, or AM. The time after the sun has moved from on high, is now descending, is referred to as post-meridian, or PM, after it's reached its highest point. So these positionings of the sun are critically important if if you're to understand this different form of energy, the different manifestations of energy as it moves across the sky during the day, during the month, and during the year. Because the energy changes throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the year. The Holy Bible is a book of astrotheology. Astrotheology. Astro means star. Theology means God. So the Holy Bible is a book about star knowledge, or knowledge of the sun. And the significance of the relationship with the sun. The significance of the relationship between the sun and the earth is visible during specific times of year, because we see in the wintertime when the sun rises low in the horizon, everything is dead in the northern hemisphere. Cold, nothing grows. But come the spring, when the length of the sun begins to increase, then what happens? Life begins to spring forth from the black earth. So the more the sun is present in your life, the more life you see on earth. So there's a direct relationship between the amount of light that you receive from the sun, from the Creator, from God, and activities on planet Earth. And it's constantly changing. Once you understand these changes, then you can begin to synchronize your activities with the activities of the sun. And you literally begin to put yourself in sync with God, in sync with the universe. Another important concept that I'll just share with you briefly, so profoundly important to me, is the fact that our ancestors, ancient African ancestors, studied the sun, studied the stars and the planets. And based upon this study, they divided the day into 24 hours. They divided the year into 365 and a quarter days. They created the concept of time, which meant that they knew that there was a time for everything. Everything in the universe happens on time. And when you were conscious of the specific energy that's emanating from the sun at a specific point in time in the day and the month of the year, when you're using that knowledge, then you will experience a different reality from someone else who has no knowledge of this relationship. Everything happens on time. So it's my firm belief that this thing that we call CP time literally puts us out of sync with the universe, with the Creator, with God. And you all know as well as I do, when you are out of sync with the universe, with the Creator, with God, ain't nothing coming your way. So we've got to begin to see time differently and use time differently in order to bring things into manifestation. Significant portions of the Bible were derived from the so-called books of the dead, the Kerim Heru, the chapters of coming forth into daylight, the pyramid text, the coffin text, and the books of Jehudi. These texts were co-opted by Europeans, specifically at the Council of Nicaea in 332 ACE, when Constantine made Christianity the official state religion of Rome. He convened a meeting of approximately 300 bishops to determine the contents of their holy book. They debated the framework for celebrating Easter. They established Christmas 18 years after the Council of Nicaea, or 350 years after the birth of Jesus the Christ. Christmas was celebrated. What was that all about? It was all designed specifically to keep those people with competitive religious and spiritual views under your control. Because for thousands of years before Christmas,